Scott Manning coming to you live from Scott Manning YouTube Sports Talk. I want to thank all of my loyal viewers for being with me here tonight. It is now time for the Scott Manning YouTube College Basketball Podcast Show. I've got 4 games I want to talk about from earlier in the week. 2 of them were tonight. 2 of them were on Thursday night. I'm going to talk about those 4 games tonight. I've got a full slate for Saturday and I want to talk about. I've got the latest bracketology report that has come out. You'll be surprised by some of the movement that I've seen in the latest bracketology report. I'm also going to talk about 3 schools that are in trouble: Gonzaga, UCLA, and Syracuse. I'm going to lay that all out for you. I'm going to tell you what's going on with them. I'm also going to, like I said, I am going to talk about the bracketology report, but also too, the Big East is somewhat weak right now, and I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about the bad week for the Pac-12 as a whole. Let's get started. We're going to get underway, and we're going to get started with a bang. Both games from tonight. Number 14, Buffalo. Number 20, Marquette. Marquette beat Buffalo tonight 103-85. What a moment. Marcus Howard, 45 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. 12 of 25 from the field, for crying out loud. 9 of 13 from three-point land, and he was a perfect 12 for 12 from the free throw line. Sam Hauser, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. 7 of 12 from the field, 4 of 7 for three-point land. Joey Hauser, Sam's brother, 11 points, 9 rebounds in the ball game tonight. Marquette dominated the second half. But I'll get to that. I'll get back to them in a second. But real quick for Buffalo. Jeremy Harris, 22 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. 8 of 15 from the field, 4 of 7 from three-point land. C.J. Massenberg, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 5 of 14 from the field, and that was about it. He was 5 of 11 from the three-point line. Where was this game won? Let's see. Marquette dominated, 33 of 67 from the field, 49.3%. Very impressive tonight. 18 of 29, 62.1%. 19 of 22 from the free throw line for Marquette, 86.4%. They out-rebounded Buffalo 48-34 tonight. Despite the fact they had 13 turnovers and 16 assists, they still won. For Buffalo, 29 of 71 for the game. That's only 40.8%. 12 of 31, 38.7%. 15 of 25 in the free throw line for 60%. They only had 8 turnovers, but they still lost. Buffalo coach Nate Oates, who is a Marquette native, a Milwaukee native, said after the game, "I was disappointed in our team's performance tonight. Our defense was bad. We gave up 103 points. We should have beaten them. We were the better team tonight, but Marquette was a better team." Marquette coach Steve Wojciechowski said, "I have never seen Marcus Howard play so hard in all my life. He was my guy. He was the go-to guy tonight. He got the job done." Marcus Howard was a one-man show tonight for Marquette. Without him, they would not have won. I mean, Howard got into foul trouble early. He couldn't get anything going. Then all of a sudden, bang, 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 bang. He was going crazy. Buffalo is no longer undefeated. Now, the question I asked was Buffalo that good, or was the Big East was Marquette not that good? I think Buffalo didn't play good tonight. They didn't. They put up 85, but they gave up 103. And I'm going to tell you right now, if the Buffalo Bison want to stay in contention in the MAC or for an NCAA tournament spot, they can't be losing games like this. They really can't. And I saw and there's some concerned faces over in Buffalo, New York tonight. Excuse me. But as far as Marquette goes, conference play is going to be starting for them very, very soon. And right now, the Big East is a little bit weak right now as a conference. I'll get to that here after a bit. So bear with me. But what a game tonight. This, folks, was a battle. This was a classic. And I know you're thinking 103-85 wasn't much of a classic, but for a long time, it was very close. But I will say this, though. A win is a win tonight for Marquette. And they got the job done. And what a game that was. Now, if you didn't want to watch, if you don't want to hear me talk about Buffalo Marquette anymore, I've also got Providence, Texas tonight, the other blockbuster game from the evening for tonight's festivities. What a game this was. Providence came home a winner tonight, 71-65. Alpha Diallo, 20.6 rebounds, 9 of 14 from the free throw line. Very impressive for him tonight. Isaiah Jackson, 12 points, 3 rebounds, 5 and 9 from the field, 2 of 4 from three-point land. For Texas tonight, Matt Coleman III, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 5 of 16 from the field, 2 of 7 from three-point land. Dylan Osatowski, I hate this. 12 points, 10 rebounds. He had a double-double tonight in a losing effort. Now, think about this for a minute. Providence basically just dominated the night. 26 of 57, 45.6% from the field. Texas only shot 23 of 61 for 37%. 37.7% tonight from the field. Three-point land for Texas. Ouch. 6 of 24 for 25%. Now, Providence only took 13 three-pointers all night. They shot 38.5%. They nailed 5 of them. Providence played better from the free throw line. Despite only going 14 to 22 for 63.6%, they still won. Texas, 13 to 23 at the free throw line tonight. That's only 56.5%. Providence out-rebounded Texas tonight 43-36. 15 assists for Providence, 8 for Texas. Despite the fact that Providence had 12 turnovers tonight, they still won. Providence coach Ed Cooley said after the game, "This is a much-needed win we had to have tonight. I'm very proud of my guys. We played our hearts out all night. It was a great moment, and we had a great team." Texas, not to take anything away, but Shaka Smart is a great coach. And I commend him. I commend him and the Texas Longhorns. Well, for Ed Cooley to come out and say something like that is very interesting. But I will say this, though. Shaka Smart was not very happy with for some of the antics that his own players tried. One of his players got called for a technical foul for growling something or saying something profane, but I don't know what happened there. But Shaka Smart said after the game, this loss is going to hurt us right now because we're trying to get back into the NCAA tournament. Right now, we're trying to get off the bubble, but this doesn't help any. Well, Coach Smart, you haven't even started Big 12 play yet. Now, let's think about this for a minute. The Longhorns suffered a loss tonight at home. They begin conference play here in about a week. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's about to get very serious for them. And I'm going to say this. There's been some concerns about the Longhorns. They beat Purdue. And yes, they did take care of business there. Well, what can they do? If they can't beat teams like Providence, when they get into conference play, they're in trouble. That's all there is to it. All right. Let's move on. Let's move on to the Thursday night action. NC State takes down number 7 Auburn, 78-71. I'll tell you what, this game was an interesting game all night long. And I'll say this right now. NC State led this game for 38 minutes last night. NC State coach Kevin Keats said after the game, "I was very proud of our team and I was very proud of our effort tonight." And he should have been. And he had every right to say that. NC State, think about this. 26 of 53 from the field, 52.8%. They shot 10 of 22 from three-point land for 45.5%. And at the free throw line, a little bit weak, 12 of 23 for 52.3%. Now, Auburn did out-rebound NC State 30-30. Auburn had 25 turnovers. That's what killed their chances right there. Now, NC State had 22. But think about this for Auburn. They only shot 30 of 62 from the field for 45.4%. From three-point land, 5 of 25 for 20%. That was it. They had 12 trips to the free throw line all night and only shot 50%. Both teams had 13 assists. Now, NC State had 22 turnovers. Auburn had 25. But let's think about the players of the game for both sides. NC State, Markel Johnson, 27 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 9 of 15 from the field. Very impressive. Braxton Beverly, he only averages 8.6 points per game. He had 15 last night. 4 or 5 from three-point land. Very impressive. Devon Daniels, he only averages 9.6 points per game. He had 15 last night. He had 15 in the victory over Auburn. 8 rebounds, 7 of 13 from the field. Now for Auburn. Jared Hoover, 11 points. He averages 15.7 points per game. He only had 11 points for last night, along with 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Austin Wiley, 13 points, 6 rebounds, 5 of 6 from the field, 3 of 4 from the free throw line. Malik Dunbar, 12 points, 4 rebounds, 5 of 8 from the field. Jamon McCormick, 14 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. And that was it for the game. Well, Auburn coach Bruce Pearl put it at best. He thought the NC State guards were just terrific. They were terrific. He said it himself. They were just terrific. We just couldn't get around them all night. We struggled. And Auburn made too many mistakes. They took too many bad shots. They had 25 turnovers. That's where everything went wrong. And now, when the new college basketball EP Top 25 poll comes out, NC State has a shot at the top 25. Maybe they can get there with this big victory over Auburn, and this would be a biggie. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be very interesting to see how this goes. Now, so what's next? Auburn faces Murray State on Saturday at home. NC State has USC Upstate on Saturday as well. So they both got to play Saturday games. And I'm going to tell you this. This upset victory for NC State on Thursday night was a real confidence booster that everybody needed. And I'm going to tell you this. It's going to be very interesting to see how this goes the rest of the way. And now, folks, the one I think everybody wants to talk about. Number 2, Duke. Number 12, Texas Tech. Now, Duke did take care of Texas Tech 69-58. However, there were some reservations in this game. I had some concerns for most of the game. Because, Texas Tech dominated. But here's something to think about. 24 turnovers for Texas Tech. That killed them. They had 15 in the first half. So that's something to think about. But for Duke, you can't think about this. Zion Williamson, 17 points, 13 rebounds, a double-double. 9 of 10 for the free throw line. R.J. Barrett, 16 points, 3 rebounds, 7 of 22 from the field. Trey Jones, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 6 of 15 from the field. Now, despite the fact that Zion Williamson fouled out, R.J. Barrett had to play with 4 fouls, Duke won. And how in the world did they do it? Well, if you listen to some of Duke's numbers, you're going to be thinking, oh, Scott, how did they get the job done? Now, from the field, they shot 23 of 60 for 38.3%. Okay, that I can do. From three-point land for Duke, 3 of 20 for 15%. That was it. And I'm going to tell you right now, Duke was very lucky. They won 20 of 25 for 80% from the free throw line. Rebounds, they out-rebounded Texas Tech 35-33. Now, Duke did out-assist Texas Tech 11-9. But Duke had 19 turnovers, but Texas Tech had 24. Now, Texas Tech didn't play too bad. 22 of 57 from the field for 38.6%. 5 of 16 from three-point land for 31.3%. But here's a couple of things to think about. Texas Tech only had 13 free throws. They only went 69.2%. Not very good. And the 24 turnovers really killed them. Jarrett Culver, 25.6 rebounds, 4 assists on Thursday night. 9 of 21 from the field, 4 of 9 from three-point land. That is not very good at all. Now, Coach Mike Krzyzewski of Duke was asked after the game. How in the world did you guys pull it out? How in the world did you do it? He said, this was his response. Texas Tech made way too many mistakes. They had 25 turnovers. They had 24 turnovers. We didn't play too good either. We could have played better. But we got out of there with a big victory because think about this. Duke's averaged almost 85 to 90 points per game. Texas Tech held them to 69. I'm going to tell you right now, if it weren't for 15 turnovers in the first half and 24 total for the game, Texas Tech would have had a double-digit lead going into the half, and they might have been able to pull it out of the bag. But Texas Tech coach Chris Beard said this after the game. Duke's a very tough basketball team. We got a lot to be proud of. This showed, but it also is too. I told them not to hang their heads too low because we gave them a good fight. But we got some things we got to work on. And I'm going to tell you, watch out for Texas Tech basketball because we start conference play very, very soon. And I'm going to say this now. This game had a March Madness feeling. And Coach Chris Beard was right. Texas Tech Duke on Thursday night. The 4 games that I talked about here this evening at the start right at the top of the show, all 4 of these games, all the 2 games on Thursday night and the 2 games tonight, all 4 of them had a March Madness feeling to it. And I'm going to tell you right now, everybody says, let's just get March Madness on, let's get March in here and get it over with now. But, however, conference play hasn't started yet for a lot of people. So there's a lot to think about there. But I am going to say this though. The last 2 Saturdays in college basketball have been nothing but crazy. It is a miracle. And I'm going to say this though. It is a miracle I've survived. Let's put it that way. But it's going to be a very interesting Saturday to see how it goes. So here's the question. What will happen this Saturday? Will we have any major upsets? We'll have to wait and see on that. But I do got 4 games on the watch list that I do want to talk about. All right. Let's start it out at 12:30 Eastern Time on CBS. UConn versus Villanova. Now, Villanova's had their struggles the last couple of weeks. Let's think about this. They've lost to the Penn Quakers, and then they had to turn around and play Kansas last Saturday. Now, Villanova put up a fight against Kansas, and that was huge. Villanova coach Jay Wright said, we're facing an old Big East team, Big East foe of UConn. I got a lot of respect for Dan Hurley and his crew. They've got a pretty good basketball team, and I'm not going to debate that all the way to the end. UConn coach Dan Hurley said, we've had Villanova on the calendar for a while. I've been thinking about these guys. They got some great players. They got Phil Booth, Eric Paschal. They can get the job done. But let's think about this. I got 3 players on the watch list for UConn for Saturday. Jalen Adams. He averages 17.3 points per game. He could be huge down the stretch. And on top of that, he's an 83. He averages 83.3% from the free throw line. So Villanova needs to be careful not to commit the foul against Jalen Adams. They need to be careful of that. Well, let's think about this too. I got a couple of other players. Christian Vital, 11.9 points per game. He leads the team in rebounds with 5.3 rebounds per game. That could be huge too. And he's a 78.8% free throw shooter. That could be very important down the stretch. All right. Tariq Gilbert, 12.3 points per game. He leads the team with the most assists with 4.3. And he's a very impressive 3-ball shooter with 43.4%. That could be huge too. Give the ball to Gilbert, they can do it. Now, if you look at the team numbers, now UConn's averaged 83.3 points per game. That could be very important. But their points allowed is only 70.6. And I know there's one cause of concern that I do have. They're only a 69% free throw shooting team. And they do shoot 35.3% from three-point land. UConn coach Dan Hurley said, if we can get some of these threes to go against Villanova, we got a shot. Now for Villanova, I've only got 2 players on the watch list. Phil Booth, he averages 16.9 points per game. Leads the team in that department. He also leads the team with 2.9 assists per game. He's a 36.1% three-point shooter. That could be very important down the stretch. And he's also a 76.5% free throw shooter. Think about that too. But Phil Booth's had some struggles. If Phil Booth can hit some of those 3 balls like he has been, I think Villanova's got a shot. Eric Paschal, he averages 14.8 points per game. Don't forget about him, and he also leads the team with the most assists with 5.6 assists per game. He's a 74.2% free throw shooter. That could be very important down the stretch. And for Phil Booth, he's a 76.5% free throw shooter. So I'm going to say this now. Villanova, I'm sorry I'm getting you confused there. Villanova, the one concern I have is Villanova's only been averaging 74.7 points per game. After 2 losses, one very bad one to the Penn Quakers, and again and losing a close one to Kansas, they can be frustrated. But their points against is only 66.7. That can be huge down the road too. And if this turns into a free throw shooting contest, give it to Villanova because they average 72.8% from the free throw line as a team. And they do need to hope and pray that this does not turn into a 3-ball contest. If this turns into a 3-pointers contest, give it to UConn. They average 35.3% from the 3-point land. Villanova's only averaging 33.8%. So this could be a very interesting game. This is going to be, I've got to label this game a toss-up for many reasons. Now, UConn, they do average 83.3 points per game. Villanova only averages 74.7. The points against for UConn, 70.6. For Villanova, 66.7. So you're thinking a toss-up. But the one thing that's got me concerned is, now, Villanova only averages 33.8% from 3-point land. UConn, 35.3%. Free throws, 72.8% for Villanova, 69% for UConn. So based on all this, I got to call this game a toss-up. This is a toss-up because, like I said, if Pascal and Phil Booth show up, give it to Villanova. But they do need to get Vital, Gilbert, and Adams into foul trouble. But if one of those three can get Booth or Pascal into foul trouble, this is going to be an interesting game. And I'm going to say this now. I'm going to be very interested to see how things go from here. Tune in Saturday at 12:30 and be ready to go, baby. I know I will be. Okay. The next game I want to talk about, number 15 Ohio State versus UCLA. Ohio State coach Chris Holtmann has said UCLA has been a questionable team all season. We're coming off of a crazy week, squeaking by Bucknell and beating Youngstown State, and now we got to worry about facing UCLA with a lot of the history there, a lot of history with John Wooden and Bill Walton. I'm sorry, a little tongue-tied there. Sometimes it happens. But Coach Holtmann said, "I'm looking forward to this game for a lot of reasons. It'll give us a chance to showcase our talents on the national stage." Now, think about this for Ohio State. Caleb Wesson, 16.5 points per game. He leads the team in the rebounds with 6.6 rebounds per game. He's a very impressive shooter from the field, almost 54.9% from the field. He's also a 76.2% free throw shooter. There's something to think about there. C.J. Jackson, he leads the team with assists, 3.7 assists per game, but he also averages 12.3 points per game. And he's a very impressive 75.5% free throw shooter himself. Now, if you look at the team numbers, you're thinking this is going to be a fairly close game. It may not be. For Ohio State, they average 74.3% as a team at the free throw line. From the field, Ohio State shoots pretty good at 48%. In 3-point land, they shoot almost 37% for 3-point land, and they do average 77.5 points per game. Their points against per game is 61.4. But UCLA coach Steve Alford has already said we're going to do what we can to beat Ohio State. We beat Notre Dame. If we can beat Ohio State, we'll prove we belong with the big dogs. But I got 3 players on the watch list for UCLA. But I've got some concerns too about the UCLA as well. I'll address those in a second. Chris Wilkes, he leads the team with 17.7 points per game. And he does also have 4.2 rebounds per game. That could be very big too. But he's only a 69% free throw shooter. That worries me a little bit. Moses Brown, he may only average 11.8 points per game, but he leads the team in rebounds with 9.4 rebounds per game. Another major concern, he's only a 66% free throw shooter as well. Jalen Hands, he leads the team in assists with 7.3, but he only averages 11.6 points per game. He's the best free throw shooter at 72.4%. I've got some concerns about UCLA. They are only shooting 61.9% from the free throw line. I'm going to come back to that here in a minute. From 3-point land, they're shooting 34.8% as a team. I think Ohio State's going to have this wrapped up because they're only shooting 45.7% from the field. I got to give this game to Ohio State. Now, grant you, UCLA averages 79.1 points per game, but their points against is 73. Based on this, I got to go with Ohio State beating UCLA. I really do. And UCLA's been having some struggles too. I will come back to that here in a minute. All right, let's move on to the next game. Oh boy. Number 19 Kentucky, number 9 North Carolina. This is going to be a biggie. This is going to be a game that everybody's going to be thinking about. Now, North Carolina coach Roy Williams said, we're coming off of 2 big wins. We're coming off of a huge win against Gonzaga. And I'm telling you right now, I've been so proud of my guys last week. Now, Kentucky coach John Calipari's coming off of an easy win himself. But Calipari said, I've been wanting this game for a long time. I wanted to try to beat Roy Williams in North Carolina. I think we can do it, and I think we got the team that can do it. Well, Coach Calipari can say what he wants. But I want you to think about this for a minute for North Carolina. I've got 3 players on my watch list. Cameron Johnson, 16.6 points per game. He has the most rebounds with 5.2 rebounds per game. He has 5.2 rebounds per game. Very impressive. Also, too, he averages 53.2% from the field. That is huge. You give Cameron Johnson the ball, look out. He's also a very, very impressive 88.7% free throw shooter himself. That's huge. Kentucky needs to be careful not to put him on the line. Also, too, Cameron Johnson shoots 49.1% from three-point land. That's major league big. The next player I have on my watch list, Kobe White. 15.2 points per game. Very impressive. He shoots 44% from the field, and he's a very good 77.8% free throw shooter. And he can also shoot 42% from three-point land. That could be huge down the road if they need him. Luke May, another player on my watch list. He averages 14.3 points per game. And on top of that, he averages 10.1 rebounds per game. He leads the team in rebounds. That could be huge too. He can also shoot 45% from the field. And he is also a very good 79.5% free throw shooter. His three-point numbers, I have a little bit of concern. 31.3% for three-point land for Luke May. Now, as a team, North Carolina averages both North Carolina and Kentucky both average 14 turnovers per game. That worries me just a little bit. If North Carolina can keep the turnover situation under control, they've got it won. Now, if you think about it for North Carolina as a team, they shoot 49.5% from the field, 73.6% as a team from the free throw line, and from three-point land, 37.1%. That is huge. But Kentucky's John Calipari has a great squad himself. I've got 4 guys from Kentucky on the watch list. Number 1, Keldon Johnson, 16.1 points per game. He's a very dangerous individual. And now, also too, he averages 5.6 rebounds per game. He can shoot 53.6% from the field. He's a very dangerous man out on the court. Now, I do have one little concern about Keldon Johnson. 69.4% from the free throw line. That's not very good. However, he does average 43.8% from three-point land. That's huge too. All right. Reed Travis, the next guy on my watch list for from Kentucky. 14.6 points per game, 6.4 rebounds per game. He shoots 59.7% from the field. That can be very important. North Carolina needs to be careful not to put the ball in his hands. He's also a 73.5% free throw shooter, and he can be a very dangerous three-ball shooter at 50%. Look out for him. P.J. Washington. Think about him. 13.5 points per game, 8.3 rebounds per game. 51, and also too, P.J. Washington could be a very dangerous guy on Saturday. 51.7% from the field. Now, his free throws, I'm a little bit concerned about at 70%. But also for three-point land, he could shoot 47.1%. That could be huge too, going forward. Now, as far as Tyler Hero goes, 12.1 points per game, but he's also a very dangerous 85% free throw shooter. Look out for him. But let's think about this for North Carolina for just a second. North Carolina's averaged 84.6 points per game. They put up 103 against Gonzaga last Saturday. There's something to think about. Their points against is only 70.3. Now they can also shoot 49.8% from the field, and 75.4% from the free throw line, and 36.9% from three-point land. Look out for them. Now Kentucky averages 84.6 points per game. That could be I kind of messed up. Let me back up. I apologize. I kind of got my numbers mixed up. It's kind of a little hard to read my writing. I've had a long day. Now, for North Carolina, they average 94.3 points per game. They're the ones that put up 103 against Gonzaga. And they average 75.3 points against. And also, too, for Kentucky, they average 84.6 points per game. And they average only 70.3 points against. And for this game, I've got to go with North Carolina. Because they got a strong group, they got a great group, and they got Cameron Johnson, Kobe White, and Luke Mayo, who can do a lot of damage with the basketball. And I'm going to tell you right now, both those teams are coming off of huge victories. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes. And there's a lot to talk about there. We'll see what happens today. It's now 12:30 a.m. in the eastern part of the country. We'll have to wait and see what happens from here. Now, the next game, the game I want to talk about, number 1 Kansas, number 18 Arizona State. Arizona State got their doors blown off by Baylor this past week, and I'll come back to that here in a bit. But first, now Kansas coach Bill Self has said, we're the best team in college basketball. We're the number 1 team in the country. Now, despite Udoka Azubuike, we've been able to get the job done. How in the world has Kansas managed to stay unbeaten without one of their best players? Here's how they've done it. Dedrick Clausen, he averages 19.7 points per game and 11.1 rebounds per game. He could shoot 50% from the field and 77.6% from the free throw line. That's huge. But don't forget about LaGerald Vick, 17.1 points per game, 4.4 rebounds per game. That could be a very dangerous man too. 52.5% from the field, 76.5% from the free throw line, and he can shoot 54% from three-point land. Look out for him. Because if they need a three ball, they can go right to LaGerald Vick. And they can also turn to Dedrick Clausen if they need points. They need points from inside the arc. There's a lot to think about there too. Now, there will be no Udoka Azubuike available for Kansas because he's out with an injury. They're probably going to have him wait to come back against Oklahoma and when Big 12 play gets underway. Now for Arizona State. I've got 3 players on my watch list. Luguentz Dort. He averages 19.8 points per game and 5.5 rebounds per game. But I've got one major problem with him. Now, he does average 48.8% from the field, but he's only a 63.8% free throw shooter. That would be the one thing that worries me the most. And he averages 35.8% from three-point land. Kimani Lawrence, 13.1 points per game, 4.3 rebounds per game. That's pretty good. He averages 42.1% from the field. He is an 85.7% free throw shooter and a 37.8% three-point land guy. He can be very dangerous too. Zillan Cheatham, 11.9 points per game. That's pretty good. However, he does average 10.1 rebounds per game. He leads the team in that department and 4.1 assists per game. He leads the team in both those categories as well. He's a very good 54.1% shooter from the field, but he's only a 61.7% shooter from the free throw line. It's not very good. Now, as far as Kansas goes as the team numbers, 45.9% from the field. That could be very important. Now, here's one problem that I have with Kansas. They're only a 67% free throw shooting team as a team. At a 37.6% three-point shooting team. Now, Kansas has averaged 82 points per game and 69.5 points against. A lot to think about there. For Arizona State, They average 44.5% from the field as a team. And as a team at the free throw line, they're not much better at 68.3%. They're only a 33.3% three-point shooting team. They average 81 points per game, but their points against is 72.2. Now the question is, can Arizona State pull off an upset? Now Kansas does not have Anuka Azubuike available. Could we possibly be talking about a court storming? We'll have to wait and see on that. But the bottom line is, Arizona State is struggling, and the Pac-12 is struggling as a whole. I'll get to that here in a few minutes. Now, those are all the games I want to talk about, but I got a few other things I want to talk about. It was brought to my attention by somebody the other day that there were 3 teams. Now, hold on. All right. Yeah, I'm right. Okay. Let's move on. There are 3 teams that we need to be worried about. Why should Gonzaga, UCLA, and Syracuse be concerned? All right. Gonzaga, I can tell you why. In the last 2 games for the Gonzaga Bulldogs, they were the number 1 team in the country. They were a number 1 seed in the first bracketology report for the NCAA tournament. They've struggled the last 2 weeks. They lost to Tennessee where they were the number 1 team in the country. 76-73, they had a loss there. Then they get down to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to face the North Carolina Tar Heels, so you get their doors blown off 103-90. Keelan Tilley, he averaged 12.3 points per game, and he's a 40% and 48% three-point shooter. He's out with an ankle injury. Gio Crandall, he averages 1.3 steals per game, and he has an injured wrist, so he's out of action. And since they beat Arizona in the Maui Invitational, they have given up 82.8 points per game. That is not very good for a team like Gonzaga. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about them being the number 1 team in the nation. All of a sudden, they're lucky to just be hanging on clinging to the top 10. I've never seen them play so bad. But when you got 2 of your star guys hurt, there's not much more you can do. Now, for UCLA, this is an easy one. UCLA better be worried because, let's see, in the last 2 games, they lost to Belmont 74-72, and then this past week, they got their doors blown off by Cincinnati. And right now, UCLA is only a 61.1% free throw shooting team. That ranks 335th in the country. And right now, UCLA coach Steve Alford is on the hot seat. And if UCLA don't start improving at the free throw line, they're going to be lucky to survive this whole season. Their only hope now to get into the NCAA tournament is to win the Pac-12. And I'll get to the rest of the stuff here in a few minutes. So bear with me. Now, the Syracuse Orange. There's another team that we got to worry about. After closing a close one, after barely surviving Georgetown 72-71, they got their doors blown off by Old Dominion 68-62. Frank Howard has missed 6 of his last 29 three-point attempts. O'Shea Brissett, he averages 17 points per game, and he only shoots 42% from inside the arc. And right now, as a team, they're only shooting 30% right now from beyond the arc. And think about this last year for Syracuse. They were 8-10, and they finished 8-10 in the ACC, and they still got into the tournament as an 11th seed. Last year, when they got that, they had no business being there. And I'm going to say this now. Those 3 teams I've mentioned, the one person that's really on the hot seat, Steve Alford of UCLA. When you're only hitting 61.1% of your free throws and you're struggling badly, it's not funny. And when you get embarrassed by Belmont, and then you get your doors blown off by Cincinnati, there's a lot of concerns there. And I'm not taking it funny anymore. So right now, it's Steve Alford that's really on the hot seat. Jim Boeheim and Syracuse, they're not that far behind. Because last year, Syracuse finished 8-10 in conference play, and they still got an 11 seed, and they went out, and they did get a good ways last year. I'm not going to lie to you. But this year, you barely survived Georgetown, then you get beat by Old Dominion. It's not looking good for you. And Syracuse is in a very tough conference right now. When you got to face Duke, North Carolina, Louisville, Miami, Florida State, it's not going to be very easy. I don't see the Orange going anywhere. I think Syracuse, unless they can pull off some miracles, may not be in March, maybe not be going to the NCAA tournament this time. I know conference play hasn't started yet for the ACC. I understand that. But what I'm saying is Syracuse has got to start playing better. They got to answer the bell. And as far as Gonzaga goes, you got to get some wins. You got 2 bad losses back-to-back, Tennessee and North Carolina. That's not very good. And speaking of North Carolina, Roy Williams has signed. Coach Roy Williams is not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. This will make Tar Heel Nation very happy. He has inked a deal for the next 8 years, for the 2027-2028 season. And he's also he's also signed a personnel services contract with Nike. Roy Williams will be 77 years old if he stays around for the final year. Let's think about this for Roy Williams. I don't like the man personally. I think he's a jerk. I don't like him. But you can't take away from what he has done. 3 national titles in 05, 09, and last year, and back in 2017. 5 Final Fours, 8 ACC crowns. That's huge. But let's think about this. Roy Williams, he's making a lot of money. He's already a filthy rich man. A lot of people have already said, why don't you just shut up and retire? But he refuses to do it. He wants to stay with the program, but I can understand where he's coming from. But I'm going to say this. Roy Williams is a great coach. I don't like I don't like him. Because I think sometimes he likes to jerk everybody around. It's just the old Duke, North Carolina rivalry in me. But I will say this, though, in fairness. For Roy Williams to sign another 8 years in North Carolina, it's going to be a miracle if he survives. But also, too, when he signed that personal services contract with Nike, he's making millions and millions of dollars. And I'm telling you right now, would you want to leave? If you were at the University of North Carolina, I wouldn't. So let's see what happens. Will Roy Williams stick around? We'll have to wait and see on that. Okay. I also want to let you guys know today, the latest bracketology report has come out. Now, what I'm going to focus on tonight are the movers and the shakers. I'm going to let you know there's some changes to the bubble teams as well. But first things first, the movers and the welcomes. Now, I'm going to go by the regions: the Midwest region, the West region, the East region, and the South region. And I'm going to let you know if they've moved up or down. So pay attention to this and let's have some fun. In the Midwest region, Purdue has dropped from the 7 line to the 8 line. After a couple bad losses, they're going in the wrong direction. Arizona State, they dropped to the 9 line after getting their doors blown off by Baylor. Marquette, they had a night, and also just before I forget, if the tournament were to start tomorrow, Purdue and Arizona State would face each other in the first round. Keep that in mind. Marquette, after the big win tonight and after having a great week, Marquette has moved up to the 6th line. I wouldn't be surprised they'd be on the 5 line after their big victory tonight over Buffalo. Harvard, out of the Ivy League. Harvard, welcome to the tournament. You're in as a 14 seed. NC State has moved up to the number 7 seed in the Midwest region. And Ohio State has dropped from the 4 line to the 5 line. Well, the drop to the 5 line for Ohio State, I can explain. They had to come from behind to beat Bucknell. Bucknell played them tough, and they got off to a slow start against Youngstown State, and the committee's probably took a good look at that. Now, out in the West region, this is the one that's got my attention. Out in the West region, TCU has moved up from the 9 line to the 8 line after a great week for the TCU Horned Frogs. The Maryland Terrapins, Maryland, they have dropped from the 8-9 to the 9 line. And also, too, keep this in mind. If the tournament were to start tomorrow, they'd be facing each other in the first round. Texas Tech has dropped from the 3 line to the 4 line. And St. Louis, welcome in. Welcome aboard. You come in as a 13 seed. And I'm going to tell you right now, the tournament were to start tomorrow, Texas Tech would face St. Louis in the first round. The Houston Cougars, nice one. They moved up from the 7 line to the 6 line this week. Loyola Chicago, Sister Jean, welcome back. You're now in the tournament. You'd be in the tournament on the 14 line. And last but not least, out in the West region, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Richard Pitino, after a great week, Minnesota is now on the 10 line. That could be very important too. Out in the East region, this is a huge one too. New Mexico State. They moved up to the 12 line. And this is the same New Mexico State team that nearly upset Kansas. Had they upset the Jayhawks, we'd be talking about New Mexico State possibly being on the 10 line or even the 9 line. Nebraska out of the Big Ten. They moved from the 5 line to the 4 line this week. Old Dominion, they moved up to the 13 line this week. And if the tournament were to start tomorrow, Nebraska would face Old Dominion in the first round. Now, the Buffalo Bison did move up to the 3 line. However, after the game I saw tonight, I wouldn't be surprised if we'd be talking about Buffalo going down to possibly the 4 line again. Villanova, they've dropped down to the 6 line. After 2 bad losses to the Penn Quakers and losing to Kansas last Saturday, it was not very good. They're now down to the 6 line. Louisville, after a good week this week out in the ACC. Louisville's now on the 7 line. LSU, welcome aboard. You come in on the 10 line. And if the tournament were to start tomorrow, Louisville and LSU would face each other in the first round. Now let's go out and let's go to the South region. Kentucky went from the 7 line to the 8 line. Kentucky has a real chance tomorrow, or a real chance today, to redeem themselves and have a real shot to beat North Carolina if they can play their cards right. Florida State, they moved down to the 5 line in the South region. Murray State, they're down to the 12 line in the South region. And if the tournament were to start tomorrow, those 2 teams would face each other in the first round. Oklahoma, they're now on the 4 line. Lon Kruger and company have really been impressed. And Oklahoma got a big victory tonight over Northwestern in overtime, 76-69. UC Irvine, they got the doors blown off tonight by the Butler Bulldogs. Oklahoma is now on the 4 line. UC Irvine is now on the 13 line. And if the tournament were to start tomorrow, those 2 teams would face each other in the first round. Georgia State, they've dropped down to the 14 line. And last but not least, out of the Big Ten, the Iowa Hawkeyes are now on the 7 line. And that is a very, very huge accomplishment right there. And now, here's the latest information that everybody wants to know. The bubble teams. The last 4 buys into the field would be, if the tournament were to start tomorrow, would be Minnesota, Florida. Now, Minnesota has had a great week. They got a big win. Florida's been a little bit iffy. Texas suffered a bad loss tonight to Providence. That's going to hurt their chances right there. And Creighton, they've been a little bit iffy at best. So as far as I'm concerned, when the next report comes out, don't be surprised if you see Texas from the last 4 buys to the last 4 in. Or they may be the first 4 out. We'll have to wait on that. The last 4 into the field as it stands right now would be UCF. They've had some struggles. Arizona, the Pac-12 is this week. San Francisco, not that good. Utah State, they've had some struggles. Now, the first 4 out, if the tournament were to start tomorrow, would be Northwestern. They lost to Oklahoma tonight in overtime, like I said. Ole Miss, they've had some struggles too. Vanderbilt, Not very good. Furman University. They got knocked off by LSU. They were ranked in the top 25 at the start of the night. Had I done the show earlier, I'd be thinking, why in the world is Furman on the part of the first four out? That's what I'd like to know. But it is what it is. And the next four out would be Colorado. They've had some struggle. The Pac-12 struggling right now. Syracuse. After losing to Old Dominion and having to squeak by victory over Georgetown, you'll understand. Washington. They've had some struggles. And UCLA, Steve Alford's on the hot seat. I'm going to tell you guys, I do the bracketology report. There's always some things that stick out. And ladies and gentlemen, I am going to go right in to my closing thoughts on this night. Now, a lot of people have said the Big East is weak right now. Now, Marquette got a big 103-85 victory tonight over Buffalo. And as it stands right now, Marquette would be a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament. St. John's, the only undefeated team left in the Big East. They're only a 9 seed. They're coming back. Villanova, if they can get a victory over UConn tomorrow, they will still be a 6 seed. Butler, they're a 9 seed as it stands right now. And Creighton is an 11 seed. A lot of people have said the Big East is weak right now. Conference play, now I'll give you this. Conference play hasn't started yet for the Big East. But Villanova, they've already got 4 bad losses. Villanova, they've lost to Michigan. They've lost to Kansas. They've lost to Penn. But they got 4 losses right now. The one that stuck out was the Penn Quakers. That's the one that sticks out to me. That's a really bad loss. Yes, and on top of that, Villanova's lost to Michigan and Kansas. Not very good. Butler, I'll say this about the Butler Bulldogs. Either they have it or they don't. There's never a middle ground with them. Creighton, they're the same way. But all the teams in the Big East that has really impressed me is Marquette. Marcus Howard put up 45 on the board tonight against Buffalo. Now the Big East, I'll consider them still weak for now, but they're playing better. But of all the conferences that are the weakest right now in all of college basketball, ladies and gentlemen, it's very simple. The Pac-12 is the worst conference in all of college basketball. Here's why. Baylor, they got their doors, they blew Arizona State's doors off. Arizona, they're struggling right now. UCLA, they got humiliated by Belmont, then they got their doors blown off by Cincinnati. This was supposed to be a year that the Pac-12 redeems themselves. I have not seen that yet at all. I mean, Arizona State got beat by Baylor. They're probably going to lose to Kansas tomorrow night. But I'm going to say this, though. When the new AP Top 25 poll comes out on Monday, I bet the farm that we're not going to see a Pac-12 team in the top 25 at all. UCLA at the free throw line has been a joke. Now, ever since UCLA beat Notre Dame, it's been one bad thing after another. The loss to Belmont, the loss to Cincinnati. As far as Arizona goes, they've had a down week. Arizona State, they got humiliated. They got humiliated by Baylor. So it's been an up and down week. So it's been a tough go for the Pac-12. A lot of people said this would be the year they could redeem themselves. I have not seen that yet. But I'm going to tell you right now, the Big East is playing better, but the Pac-12 is the weakest conference in all of college basketball. UCLA already has 4 losses. 2 of them are really bad. And I'm going to say this. If they don't start playing better, if the Pac-12 don't start getting it together, we may not have a Pac-12. We may only have one Pac-12 team in the NCAA tournament. And that may be the team that wins the conference. Because if any Pac-12 team wants to get an at-large, all they got to do is look at the resume and say, nope, not happening. And that's all there is to it. So a lot of people say the Big East is weak. I'll give you that. But the Pac-12 is the weakest conference in all of college basketball. And that's all I have to say about that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just one more thing before I go. We need to hand out some awards. For the 4 games that I mentioned that were played, the 2 games on Thursday night and the 2 games you saw tonight, or actually on Friday night, I got to hand out some awards. For the NC State-Auburn game, Marco Johnson, 27 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 9 of 15 from the field. Congratulations to you, sir. You just got yourself a Scott Manning Basketball Hardwood Award. Braxton Beverly, 15 points last night, 15 points on Thursday, 4 or 5 from three-point land. You just got yourself a Scott Manning Basketball Hardwood Award. Devon Daniels, 15 points, 8 rebounds. You just got yourself a Scott Manning Basketball Hardwood Award. Now for the Duke Texas Tech contest. Zion Williamson, 17 points, 13 rebounds, 9 of 10 from the free throw line. You, sir, just got yourself a Scott Manning Basketball Hardwood Award. R.J. Barrett, 16 points, 3 rebounds, despite the fact he had to play the game with 4 fouls. Congratulations to you, sir. You just got yourself a Scott Manning Basketball Hardwood Award. Trey Jones, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 6 of 15 from the field. You, sir, congratulations to Trey Jones. You just got yourself a Scott Manning Basketball Hardwood Award. Now for the Buffalo Marquette contest. I got 3 to hand out. But the biggest one of all, Marcus Howard, 45 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. 12 of 12 from the free throw line, 9 of 13 from three-point land, 12 of 25 from the field. Congratulations to you, sir. You just got yourself a Scott Manning Basketball Hardwood Award. Sam Hauser, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. 7 of 12 from the field, 4 of 7 from three-point land. Congratulations to you, sir. You just got yourself a Scott Manning Basketball Hardwood Award. Joey Hauser, 11 points, 9 rebounds. I'm going to give you a Scott Manning Basketball Hardwood Award as well. Now for the Providence, Texas contest. Alpha Diallo. He's been a recipient before, but congratulations to you, sir, with 20.6 rebounds, 9 of 14 from the free throw line. You just got yourself a Scott Manning Basketball Hardwood Award. Isaiah Jackson, 12 points, 3 rebounds, 5 of 9 from the field, 2 of 4 from three-point land. You just got yourself a Scott Manning Basketball Hardwood Award. And a lot of people have asked me, Scott, what are these hardwood awards worth? They're not worth any money. They're just worth a pat on the back and a fantastic job. But I want to recognize these guys for all the hard work they put in on Thursday and Friday. The Thursday-Friday games are now over. It's now time to look ahead to Saturday. And what can we expect? Only time will tell that. But it's going to be very interesting to see how this weekend goes, how this Saturday goes in college basketball. Will we have the March Madness mentality? I will say yes, because think about it. Kentucky, North Carolina, Ohio State, UCLA, UConn, Villanova, Arizona State, Kansas. Some of those games may have March Madness written all over them. And I'm not going to say anything further here tonight. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I want to thank you guys so much tonight for being with me. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Scott Manning. All you have to do is type my name, scroll down, look for this pretty face, click subscribe, and you'll see all the sports videos I have done so far. Thank you guys so much for being with me. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much for being with me. Good night, everybody. I'm going to bed. Thank you so much for being with me, and good night, everybody. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for being with me, and God bless.